Hey folks, it's Alex Blencar and I'm back at the kitchen table. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the August 2022 residential real estate market for Peterborough, Ontario. So it's officially September 2nd, so I went and I calculated the August stats for the residential market in Peterborough, and they came back pretty surprising. So when we're looking month over month, the average price in August was $632,777. The surprising part is that's actually up from July. So in July, it was $618,339. So we're up a bit from July, even though the media seems to have the opinion that everything is going down in Ontario. And although it might be, this is why it's especially important to pay attention to the local markets, as Ontario is not always a reflection of the local market. Now, in terms of days to sell, that is up about a week. So we had 28 days to sell in August 2022, and we had 20 days to sell last month. So they're taking a little bit longer to sell these properties, but the average price is actually up. Again, the sales are actually up as well. So in July, we had 83 sales. In August, we had 96 sales. So we're up a little bit there for sales as well. And finally, in terms of new listings, so the listings are down in August, but the sales are up. So the new listings, we had 131 new listings in August 2022 in the Peterborough residential real estate market. In July, we had 166 new listings. So listings are slightly down. There wasn't a lot of activity, and this is fairly typical for August. August, it tends to be a little bit of a slower month for real estate, as you know, people are really enjoying the last month of summer before the kids head back to school. This was one of the first summers, actually I believe it was the first summer since the pandemic, so you know, everybody's out at the cottage, nobody's really thinking real estate in August, but that does tend to change in September. So let's see how September looks when we get to the end of the month. Now, I wanted to run over a quick scenario with you guys. Everybody's talking about the interest rates, and the sentiment seems to be that real estate, with these interest rates going up, it's no longer affordable for first-time buyers. But what I wanted to do was talk about a quick scenario in the marketplace. So what I did was I compared the February market and the level of affordability in February to the level of affordability now in August. So let's break it down a little bit. So let's say you purchased at the peak in February. So you had a 2.7% interest rate, roughly. I mean, that's kind of the average interest rate. You had a 5-year term and you had a 25-year amortization. So that was your mortgage for February in a nutshell. Now, you purchased at the average price in Peterborough in February, which was $770,000 in February. That was the average price for a residential home. You put $100,000 down for your down payment, so you were left with a mortgage of $670,000. $770 purchase price, $100K down payment, $670,000 mortgage. Now, your monthly payment for that mortgage would be $3,068.51 every month, roughly. Again, these are just rough calculations. It could depend on your lender and your situation, but roughly that would be your monthly payment for a 2.7% interest rate with a 5-year term and a 25-year amortization. Now, at the end of your 5-year term, you would owe $569,341 on your house. So you've paid down around $100,000 after that 5-year term, and your monthly payment would be around $3,000, $3,068.51. That would be if you purchased in the peak at that low interest rate of around 2.7. Now, let's say you purchased a home now where the average price is around $594. So let's say you purchased a house for $594. You put $100K down. So you had a mortgage of $494, so $494,000 for your mortgage. Again, you've got that same 5-year term with that 25-year amortization, but now you're paying it back at a 5.6% interest rate. So purchase price is down, but interest rate is up. How does that affect your monthly payment? Well, here's the surprising thing. Your monthly payment is actually cheaper than it was in February. So your monthly payment would be $3,044.15 as opposed to $3,068. So it's slightly cheaper to purchase now, even though the interest rates are up. Now, at the end of your 5 years, you will owe $441,239. So, you've only really paid down around $50,000 at the end of your 5-year term, and that's because those interest rates are up. However, your monthly payment, which is the home payment for a buyer, that's what your buyers, as a buyer, that's what your house is worth. It's worth your monthly payment. It isn't necessarily worth what you paid for it. It's worth your monthly payment because that's what you have to do every single month to own that house. So your monthly payment, again, is lower than it was, slightly, than it was in February. Even though in February you were getting a mortgage at that lower interest rate, almost half the interest rate of what it is now. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, when you think about who paid down more, so if you bought at the peak after those 5 years, you would have $200,000 roughly of equity, $200,659 to be exact. And if you purchased now, you would have about $152,761,000. So you'd have less equity in the home, but your monthly payment is almost the exact same. So the affordability of a home is almost the exact same as it was. In fact, it's slightly better than it was in February when the buyers were going crazy for homes. So even though the interest rates have increased, this is something to note, even though those interest rates have increased, your affordability is generally the same as it was in February when it was so cheap to borrow money and get a mortgage. So that's something to note. I'll leave that scenario in the description for you guys so that you can look at it and compare, and look at those numbers and see how February compares to August. Alrighty guys, so that is a quick scenario. Now let's hop into the actual neighborhood differences year over year. So let's start off as always with Central Peterborough. So Central Peterborough saw 32 new listings in the month of August. That's up 100% from last year. So listings have actually doubled from last year, the amount of new listings for Central Peterborough in August. Sales have gone down about 42%. We had 12 sales in the month of August in Central Peterborough. So we had 32 new listings and only 12 sales. So still a bit of inventory in Central Peterborough. Now the average price was actually below $500,000 for Central Peterborough. So the average price in August 2022 for Central Peterborough clocked in at $496,917. That's down about 5% from last year. And then days to sell shot up about 122% from last year. It's now, on average, it took 40 days to sell a property in Central Peterborough. In terms of the beautiful East City, comparing August 2021 to August 2022, we saw 13 new listings in the east part of Peterborough. And, not a lot of activity, as always, for Eastern Peterborough. That's down about 40% from last year, the amount of new listings. We saw 12 sales, so almost everything that was listed got sold in the eastern part of Peterborough. That's down about 30% from last year. The average price clocked in at $635,667 for Eastern Peterborough. That's up about 9% from last year. And it took around 25 days to sell a home in Eastern Peterborough. That's up about 92% from last year. So properties are getting listed in Eastern Peterborough and they are getting scooped up, but they take about 25 days to sell. And the average price is, just over that $630,000 range, which is roughly similar to the average in all of Peterborough. Now let's talk about the North End. So the North End saw 37 new listings in August 2022. That's down about 2% from last year. So, roughly a 2% change, not a whole lot. I think there were 36 new listings last year and 37 this year. The number of sales is also down about 12.5%. we saw 28 sales, so still a bit of inventory left over there at the end of the month. And the average price was $650,000, $632,000. That's down about 3% from last year, so a little bit of a shift there. But again, prices are coming down. And it took 26 days to sell, so that's double what it took last year. So properties are taking longer to sell, which indicates that the buyer's demand is not as high as it was last year. Finally, let's talk about the south end and then the west end. So the south end of Peterborough, again, not a lot of action in the south and east end of Peterborough. They're a bit of a smaller market. So we saw 15 new listings in August 2022. That's down about 34% from last year. We saw 18 sales, so actually more sales than there were listings in southern Peterborough. That's down about 10% from last year. So some of that leftover inventory from last month ended up moving this month. And what's weird, compared to all of the other markets that we've been seeing this month, we actually saw less new listings than we did number of sales. So the number of sales was actually higher than the amount of new listings for that marketplace. Now, the average price clocked in at about $546,000, $861,000. That's up about 3.5% from last year. So prices have actually gone up compared to last year in the southern part of Peterborough. Days to sell, now that has gone up as well. It's more than doubled. We saw 150% increase in the days to sell. That's up at 25 days to sell, roughly the average for Peterborough. Now, in terms of the lovely West End. So August 2022, we saw 33 new listings in the West End of Peterborough. That's up about that's down 46% from last year. We saw 26 sales. That's down about 43%. So not a lot of sales, but again, more new listings than we did see sales in Western Peterborough. The average price is actually up about 14% from last year, which is absolutely crazy. So not a lot of activity, but the average price actually did climb about 14% from last year. So that's up to $734,398 for the average sale price in Western Peterborough. And days to sell, that's, again, it's climbing, it's going up, it's taking longer for these properties to move. That's up to 28 days to sell, which is a 64% increase. So overall thoughts on the market. I mean, it was awesome to see the average price actually climb up month over month, especially with all the doom and gloom that's happening in the media and everybody saying real estate's crashing, we're going into a recession. It was nice to see in the local market that prices actually did increase for those sellers. So this is really, a sideways move again. So this is our second month of really a slightly sideways move compared to, month over month changes. So we did kind of see it go like this, and now it's kind of gone like this. So is it leveling out? Let's see. So we'll have to stay tuned for September. There is a Bank of Canada there's a likely Bank of Canada interest rate increase coming on September 7th. So let's see how that affects the real estate market. Again, we didn't have an increase for August, and we did see the prices slightly increase compared to July. So let's see how that Bank of Canada meeting influences the real estate market in Peterborough, Ontario. Alrighty guys, that's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed that video and that talk on the market. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again next month in September to see how the market changes month over month. Alrighty guys, that's all for me. I'm Alex Blencarn. This is The Kitchen Table. Until next time guys, take care.